Y'all, clock says 8 o'clock and the commissioner's here, so we're going to go on and get started if you don't mind. Dominic, you want to?
Yes, sir. All right, if y'all don't mind, let's go to the Lord in prayer real quick. Heavenly Father, God, we love you. We thank you for this day, God, and I was reminded this morning that all of the good things that we do and all of the pretty shows that we put on are like filthy rags. It really is about the condition of our heart, God, and how much we love you and how much we love others. Just guide us and direct us in all that we do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir, and thank all y'all. I'm going to apologize ahead of time to you for setting an 8 o'clock meeting on a Monday morning. We ain't coming in till late, so thank y'all for getting up and being here. I know Representative Corbett probably left about 2 o'clock this morning. Oh, okay. All right. But thank y'all very much. I want to go on and get a couple of things out of the way. We have to appoint a member of the ex officio Commodity Commission. I don't know what you call them, advisor or whatever it is. It's made up, and Gary, if you want to explain this, you're welcome to. It's made up of the commissioner, the Farm Bureau president. We appoint a member from the north, and the Senate appoints one from the south. Did they do Buddy again? Did they do Buddy Legier again? Or did they put somebody new? Buddy is. And the one we have been doing for the last couple of times is a guy named Russ Moon. They grow cows, wheat, corn, strawberries, blackberries, chickens. I don't know what else from over in Madison County. So I would recommend Russ if that suits y'all. Gary, you want to say something? Right, right. Except peanuts, and they a whole different sack of nuts. So if that suits y'all, and I could get a motion to, and I talked to Russ too.
So let me get this straight. If the president of the Georgia Farm Bureau is on there, does that mean we're going to be voting for Chairman Tom McCall to be on that commission? Amen. Well, I'm all in. I move due pass then.
Is that a second? All right, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. All right, thank you, sir. I'll let Russ know. And I think we got to do a letter to the Secretary of State for this and the one we did the other day, don't we, Lee? All right. Let's do Senate Bill 211. We had a lot of testimony on this the other day. And if anybody wants to say something, I would hope it would be short, because after all that the other day, all the parties sat down and hashed it out, and everybody's happy except for one thing we got to amend, which is real simple. So I'm just going to start right here. Kathy, did you want to say anything?
No, sir. I just appreciate, Mr. Chairman, Kathy Casavo with Georgia State Industry Association, appreciate the committee, appreciate the authors getting together on the bill, and would just ask for the date to be extended so we don't have to do something within the next couple days, and worked with Kelman and everyone on that and the author of the bill. Thank you, sir.
Dale? Alex, you or Jake got anything? Mark, did you talk the other day? You okay? And this language that we're talking about was copied pretty much out of Wyoming, which has not been challenged in court. So I hope we can get this to a point. I do want to make one special little presentation, and I want to go ahead and say that this is the way this stuff's supposed to work. And all the and where's John and Mo? I'm sorry, John, are you okay? And if any of you want one of these grass sausage biscuits at Mo and John, they brought you some for breakfast. It's got real eggs and real cheese. So, and you know, I don't want to belabor this, but this is how ag has always had to work. You got the people that grow the ingredients for the grass plant-based burgers that are farmers. Then you got the beef people who are farmers. It's just like the corn people want high corn prices and the beef people want cheap corn prices. So that's the way ag has worked forever. And I'm glad that all the parties were able to sit down in 228 down yonder and talk and get this thing worked out to where everybody's not 100% happy, but everybody's semi-satisfied. So that's the way this place up here is supposed to work.
It's impossible.
Yeah. But Mo, thank you for breakfast. I do want, in the process of all this, I learned that Kathy Cassava has never had a Vienna sausage. So I brought you a can of Vienna sausage, and also this little tool right here. You can pop the top with it and won't break your fingernails, and you stick it down in there and run it around the Vienna sausage and separate them. So
And I get to keep this?
you do.
Okay.
You do, and there's a word in the bill down on line 43 that talks about what Vienna sausage is pretty much made out of that Kathy doesn't want to talk about. So anyway, Kathy, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So we need to amend it to on line 46. We need to strike 46 and 47 and put the effective date, how you write it, Paul, will be December 31st, right, of 2020. Is that correct? So, Paul, if you could write that in and let us pass it out as amended. Is that how it works? All right. Does anybody have any questions? Clay, you look like you're fitting to ask something. Now's a good time. Wait a minute, I don't know where you at. All right.
Mike 10. There you, thank you, Mr.
Do
Chairman.
we need to, wait a minute, do we need to vote on it all right. We got to make a motion to vote on the amendment first, and then we'll do
I'd like to make a motion we vote on the amendment as the chairman mentioned, December 31st, 2020.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. All right, now Clay.
Make a motion that we pass SB 211, our substitute, as amended.
Motion second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Thank y'all all that worked on this thing and got it satisfactory. And I have already talked to Rules, and they're gonna put it on like tomorrow, I hope. All right, Senator Kirkpatrick, which one you want to do first? Okay. If you don't mind, that'd be good. I don't know which. Check that mic and see if it's working. Yeah, it is.
It doesn't have a number on it. Okay, can you hear me? I've already had the virus, so if it's okay with you, I'll take my mask off for this. You know, I'm a surgeon, so I'm used to wearing a mask, so that doesn't bother me at all. But I will say that I'm usually in front of the House and Senate Health and Human Services Committee, not the Ag Committee. So I appreciate the opportunity. I did grow up on a farm, and I still have a small farm in Alabama. So I care a lot about agriculture, and I appreciate being in front of this committee. I may have to phone a friend if there are questions about this bill. I've got some help from the Department of Agriculture over here to help me if there are questions. But what Senate Bill 381 is, it's a department bill that allows our Department of Agriculture to form an agreement with the FDA called a 2088 agreement. And this will allow Georgia to continue important federal grants for their food safety program and to get important information about food-related outbreaks from the federal government. And the reason it's important is because of a change that's being made by the FDA, where previously it's just been a handshake agreement that they would give us the information. They're not going to do that anymore, and so the states are having to allow for these 28 agreements. And this will assure that much-needed grant funding occurs from the federal government and helps the Agriculture Department keep Georgia safe. Thank you.
Gary, did you want to say anything? Excuse me, Commissioner, or, okay. Natalie?
I won't take long, I'll stand over here. But this is really an important bill. It gives us the ability to receive information from FDA that's non-public. It's the preliminary information, but it allows us to protect the public. The number one goal is food safety and protecting public, and the sooner we can get that information, the sooner that we can react and hopefully stop any potential illnesses or anything moving forward. It additionally allows us to get some grant funding with FDA, which is extremely helpful for our department and running a lot of our programs there.
Thank you, ma'am. Who's 5? Is that you, Scott? Okay.
I apologize if I haven't had my second cup of coffee this morning, Mr. Chairman, so I might be slow in the uptake again this morning. What kind of information are we talking about that would have? This is the reason. Anytime we start exempting things from public scrutiny, it raises a red flag for me. So if you could just discuss what the nature of the information is that would no longer be available to the public.
My understanding is that this information is already not available to the public. It has to do with food-related outbreaks, so that the federal government gives Georgia a heads up about what's going on. Natalie can probably explain it better.
That's absolutely correct. It is not information that currently the public has, and it's not information that the public would no longer get. This is information that FDA, it's preliminary information. An example would be like a recall. If there has been an investigation or something tied back to a particular product, this is the heads up that we need prior to doing a recall, or that company doing a recall, or FDA initiating the recall. There's a couple of examples I'm trying to think. Anything as far as if FDA has done an investigation at a facility that's in Georgia and they have found some severe conditions, or they're having a compliance meeting with them, we would be able to join if we have this agreement in place. Otherwise, we would not have any knowledge of that, and that would be a facility that we also regulate.
And in addition, we already have this type of agreement in place for the Department of Public Health.
Thank you.
Is that it? Any more questions for the author or department people?
At the proper time.
Go ahead.
Make a motion to do pass.
Got a motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Thank you, Senator. Okay, you want to do 338 right quick?
Sure.
And this is kind of a hearing here.
I
instead of
appreciate this,
necessarily a vote.
you hearing this bill, and I understand it's for a hearing only. It's really, I think, helpful to raise awareness about a problem that we're dealing with in Georgia. This bill addresses the commercial dog and cat breeding industry, and the Department of Agriculture monitors this industry and inspects them. And the commissioner and I have been working closely for over a year now to address problems that have occurred in Georgia in this industry. Many of these breeders are already licensed and are following all the department's rules and regulations. Sometimes problems happen when a breeder has an issue like a natural disaster, a hurricane, a divorce, somebody gets sick, or some other calamity, and it results in a rescue operation taking place. This has happened a number of times over the last few years and has caused a lot of animals to be rescued at great expense to the taxpayers and a burden on local law enforcement. In one case, over 700 dogs in bad shape needed rescue, and this caused a burden not only on law enforcement and the taxpayers, but local veterinarians and volunteers. In fact, in the first quarter of 2019, over 1,200 dogs were left behind by 3 high-volume breeders. The average cost for a rescue is over $3,000 per animal, and even a euthanasia is from $100 to $300. This bill wouldn't change anything about who has to be licensed, except it takes fish out of the bill at the commissioner's request. But other than that, it doesn't change licensure requirements for which breeders have to be licensed. But what it would do is the breeders that already have to be licensed would have to put skin in the game as part of their cost of doing business in the form of a surety bond. This is already required for many agricultural products, as you all well know. This would take some of the financial burden off the taxpayers and also veterinarians and rescue organizations, so it would make the department's job easier. The process would be managed by the commissioner, who would set the rules and regulations, and the criminal background check that's required in the bill would be specific for animal cruelty or dogfighting. It's been suggested that hunting dogs should be exempted, and I have a list here of 17 pages of different dogs that can be used for hunting, so that really isn't doable as far as enforcing the law. This bill is really directed towards the producer of a commercial product, and it just protects the public when things go wrong. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, understanding that you guys are not voting on this today.
Thank you, ma'am. And if y'all look on your copies, when I was listening to the senator, I hand wrote in hunting dogs down there because I didn't want to mess with the plantations that, you know, the bird plantations that breed their own dogs and got their own line of genetics. And that's why you have hunting dogs written at the bottom of your page. So that was just something I wrote in. I didn't know Lee was gonna make the copies off the page that I scribbled on. So anyway, does anybody have any? Gary, did you want to say something? Okay. Yes, sir.
Good morning, and Mr. Chairman, thank you for doing this morning. I want to thank Senator Kirkpatrick. She's kept us, we have been working off and on for over a year now. There are issues in this arena. This bill is a good bill. We've worked hard on it. A lot of people, they're like any piece of legislation, people are going to have different ideas. And we, honestly, when you and I were talking Friday as to whether, the senator says it's a hearing, we didn't know whether you're going to vote or not. But it's good to hear it. We're committed to working on this issue. If this winds up being sort of a casualty of the calendar, that's a shame, because I think there's some things in here where there could be some give and take if people if you got it in the right kind of context to have some more discussion. And it's tough to do fast, and I respect that. But we came up with the surety idea just simply because it is part of what a lot of our licenses, as you know, require a surety to do business. And that surety would go back to a local, in case if there was a bad situation, that would go back to a local government or to a local groups to help clean up the problems. Kind of makes sense. We've already got a model of some of that. It gives us the ability to stratify licenses, which we don't now. We just have a license. If you were to stratify them through rules, then you would put the tougher regulation where the highest risk would be, which makes sense. The higher the number, the greater the risk. There's probably there's some giving. I'm not speaking to a particular issue, but there's like any bill, there's some give and take in this, and it'd be interesting to really get everybody to that table to talk at a time. I appreciate you hearing it. I appreciate the senator's work. I think it's a real good step, and we're committed to making this thing a little. There's some bad situations. We're not going to catch. This bill's not going to cure all of that, because an inspection is a snapshot in time. It doesn't make a difference if it's one of council members or anybody we regulate on an inspection that day. supposedly a couple of bad things that we've had were pretty much okay until calamity hit with a family or something, and these particular situations can spiral out of control very quickly, and then you have a really, really bad situation. So, well, I appreciate you letting me talk, and we're happy to work with any member, with senator, and anybody else that would like to see this, something like this move forward. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner. You know, I don't dictate stuff in this committee. Try not. So, you know, whatever the folks sitting out there take a notion to do today will be fine. We just put it down as hearing. Let me get Dominic and then get you, Matthew. Go ahead, Dominic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's up here at line 31 through 36. It talks about the commissioner being able to set the fees in kind of a tier. And so I was asking myself the question before I read that.
Okay.
It would probably be helpful for me if I knew a little bit more about what that tier would look like, and I'll tell you why. Going back to the hunting dogs, I've got a close family friend who's been in the blue tick hound business for 40 years. He has some of the top bloodlines, but he never has more than a dozen dogs. His bloodlines usually run through his male, and he has them up for stud, etc. They bring dogs to him to breed with his blue tick bloodline. And so when you say tier, are you talking about number of animals? Would be like if you had 8 to 10 dogs, you're at this level, and it would probably be helpful for me, particularly in my district, because these guys that raise hunting dogs, you seldom ever see, and some of my buddies can probably correct me if I'm wrong. Corbett tries to all the time, but if they very seldom ever gonna have more than a dozen dogs, and they're not making a pile of money off of these. This is just one more hit on what their input cost will be, and it'll ultimately one day be one more hit on trying to stop. Quite honestly, some of these good old boys from being able to have their bird dogs, their coon dogs, and you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So I think it would be helpful for me to tell them, hey, listen, it's $50, and if something happens to you and your ex-wife or whoever don't want to, soon-to-be ex-wife don't want to do something with those dogs, and law enforcement has to come out there, somebody pays. True? So that's the only comment I would make. It'd be
Right.
helpful for me to know what that tier would look like.
I agree with you, and I don't think anybody's trying to put anybody out of business. And I'm happy to work with the commissioner. We kind of ran out of time. He's had a few other fish to fry, as you know. No pun intended, sorry. But I think defining the tiering process would be helpful, and I think we just didn't quite get there. But happy to have that conversation in between session or whatever.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Full leaders comment is that, and that's one of the things we're in search of maybe is, I mean, there's a real question out there, who ought to be licensed? And there are different opinions about that. But
Y'all, Gary was smart enough to bring the brains in the ag department with him, so if y'all got any questions, they can answer too. Matthew.
Many flaws, the least of which is not my choice of football team.
Probably more, that's one mighty good way to kill a building.
Mr. Chairman, I understand the wanting to know what the fee tiers are going to be, but I know that's something the department can certainly promulgate, and we don't necessarily have to put it into statute. So if the chair is accepting motions, I'd like to move that this do pass as is.
Okay, I got 2 or 3 more questions. Who's number 10? Clay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not quite ready for that yet because there's still several things that I have in addition to Representative Laricchia's tier question. So the bond amount, what is that based on? Is it based on past claims, past files? Is it based on the number of dogs you have? Is it based on if you have 16 $500 dogs versus 16 $3,000 dogs, that's a different thing. And how will it be used? If someone comes back, I sell a German short hair to a buddy that wants to go quail hunting and winds up with parvo. Now, I don't know if he got it from me, if it got it from where he put the dog out. If there's a question, is that where the bond will come back to? Right now it's between me as a breeder. I don't breed dogs. I have a rescue dog at the house, so I'm using that very loosely. But with me as a breeder, that's how those are handled now, between me as a breeder and my customer who won't be satisfied. And if they have problems with the dog, they're gonna come back. I'm gonna make it right. I want a satisfied customer for him in the future, for his neighbor. I certainly don't want him to tell everybody in the community, I got a bad dog from Clay, and don't buy a dog from him. And so right now I'm wanting to protect my business with making sure my customer is satisfied. At what point does it come to the department to say, hey, I spent $2,000 on this German short hair and it's not working out, and I want to call his bond, and there again, how much and what's it based on? Do y'all just come up? I mean, that there's a lot in there that I am uncomfortable with, not knowing.
It's a great question and a great point for clarification. Senator, unless the bill has changed since I last saw it, I apologize, I didn't look over it before. But this bond is not the equivalent of like a lemon law bond, kind of what I think you're talking about. This isn't a bond that would make whole someone who claims that they got a sick dog or a defective dog. This bond is actually very small in scope to when it can be called upon. And that is when we have an entity, let's say a breeder who has dogs, and for some reason that breeder can no longer care for those dogs. Either we have put them out of business, we revoked their license for violations of the law. They've decided that, for example, they're not in good enough health to continue what they're doing, or they've just otherwise failed and refused to take care of those animals. At that point, if they're no longer in business, this bond would be used for the sole purpose of rehoming those animals, providing for the care of those animals until they can get to another place somewhere else where they can be cared for. This bond is solely for that purpose. It's not to pay someone for the price of the animal, so it's based on how much it would cost to rehome an animal, to vet an animal, to take care of an animal in that transition period from someone who is no longer licensed or has had those, if the court has ordered those animals to be moved.
Okay, follow up, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, and would you, I guess, got a text that they can't hear when you ain't on the mic. So, yeah, go ahead, Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With that being said, regarding a rescue situation, my understanding from Senator Kirkpatrick with the some of the cases, did I understand $3,000 a dog or an animal?
That wasn't, I thought the numbers that we had received were more in the hundreds of
Well,
dollars per animal.
I'm not sure that that number's accurate, but I can tell you that even putting the dog down when it's been in one of these situations is from $100 to $300, and then the animal has to be rehomed one way or another. If it's not going to be euthanized, it's got to be veterinary care and all of that. So that number is likely not accurate.
Okay, it just seemed way high to me, but I could be wrong.
I can get you some more information about that if we need to later.
I believe the costs you would be looking at are vetting, feeding, transportation, housing until it got to a new point, so.
Right. So that includes a lot of different steps in the process.
Who's number 8 that you, Rick? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Were you through, Clay,
Yes.
for the time being?
Yes.
We can come back to you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had just a couple of questions, just seeing this, heard about this bill, but then just seeing it. And it's just kind of unfortunate that something like this is going to affect so many Georgians due to the bad actions of just a few. And I guess I really question how many times this bill would be enacted. I'd just like to know that this sort of action would have taken place, Commissioner, and it needed to be done. I really want to echo what Floor Leader LaRicchia said for sure. I looked here on line 40, we talk about the, conviction of animal cruelty and dog fighting. That really opens the door for anyone to open and hire any dog fighting, et cetera, kind of person. Similar to what we've done in other laws, we've said any employee couldn't. I mean, this just kind of lets a figurehead operate a dog breeding thing with who knows who underneath them. I'd like to know how much these bonds cost, specifically, in this realm of world, insurance costs are based on liability and exposure. I mean, what do they cost? $50 or $500? I'd really like to know. Just throwing things out here. And in line 46 through 48, Commissioner, I wrote down here, you're a gentleman who uses common sense and practical application. This puts in code that we're going to trust that, Commissioner, when you're not the commissioner. And you could have a commissioner who is very much against the average Georgian having a small dog kennel and them to be punitive towards that person. And that being said, I think Senator's thing, we ran out of time, that this bill shouldn't move forward and does need more discussion. We table it. I need to make a motion if I need to.
Mr. Chairman, we were just kind of aiming on having a hearing today, but
Okay.
then I don't know what Matthew wants to do yet. So anyway, let's see what else we got here. Has anybody else got any questions? Allie, you called me yesterday specifically. Do you want to say something?
Well, I'm happy to provide information alongside Senator Kirkpatrick and Commissioner Black to answer some of the questions that have been asked today. This is something that the Georgia Pet Coalition supports, and I'm just here to support Senator Kirkpatrick and Commissioner Black. This is an effort that's been going on for more than a year now, and I think there's probably, just like what you did with 211, I think there's probably an opportunity for all of us to get around the table and move something forward that will address the concerns, but that will also address the issues that we've seen across the state.
And I think that the food industry and the beef industry and the ag industry is a perfect example of how to get something fixed. And maybe that's what we need to do with this one, since there's so many questions and so many different factions involved, which is why I wanted to kind of get it out on the table and let everybody know that it's out there, kind of like we did the meat bill last week. So,
Yeah, I would just like to say thanks for the opportunity to talk about the bill. I am happy to hear the questions because there may be things that we have thought of and maybe things we hadn't thought of. And I think it's always useful to get the people affected by the laws that we pass together to talk about this. And this at least gives us a chance to get the right people in the room. So I appreciate the opportunity. And I also appreciate the work by the commissioner and his staff because he's the one that's stuck with the problems when they show up, and that's kind of how this conversation started.
Commissioner, go tell me what that mic number is right there in front of you. Yeah. What's the number so I can mash the button?
Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate the chairman's, his observations are always good. Let me just say this about the surety. We came up with the notion of surety simply because it's so prevalent in everything else that we do. Now, can you get it where it's affordable? Can you get it where it needs to be? What are the levels? Those are absolutely things that you have to settle on. But as far as solving a problem, the one thing I would say about solving a problem because of just a few issues is that's probably not too much different than a grain bond or anything else, because fraud in grain warehouses is not widespread, but when it hits, it's bad, and that's why we have a bond. And we haven't called on them. How many we called on one bond in the last year, and it was vegetable.
7 years.
Huh?
One in the past 7 years.
You've just won in your 7. We had one because you got to be a dealer in ag products. You got to have a bond. And I know we did have one vegetable issue in the past year where so our thought process was saying, well, could you get that where it was reasonable, and could that at least on the top side of this, where things do go sour, could that be a deterrent, or at least something that we could use? And the purpose would be to go back and hopefully help the local community clean up the mess, because a couple of things where we've had a mess in the last year are bad, and there certainly are costs associated to it. So, but we're happy to work with the committee, Mr. Chairman, and thank the senator again, and thank everybody for their questions.
Commissioner, the way I remember it, one of your first orders of business since you got this job was dealing with a dog problem down South Georgia somewhere, wasn't it? And you've been dealing with them since. Hey, Senator, do you want to say anything else? Or Matthew, you still want to do something, or you want to talk about it? Okay, thank you. Y'all, that's it, and I want to take a minute. It didn't dawn on me till I was walking across the rotunda a while ago. And I always look up when I walk across that glass floor and wonder how they built that in 1860, whatever they put it together, and how they did what they did. Y'all, this is probably my last ag meeting. And, in 16 years, I never have had but 2 admins, and that's Lee and Pat, and they kept me out of trouble. And I don't want to start naming people, but David showed me where I have to sign these things because I don't keep up with it. And Paul keeps the language right. And then my wife has put up with this for 26 years and 16 sitting in this chair. But most of all, I want to thank all of y'all. This has been the most nonpartisan committee in the House, I think, because everybody's got to eat and everybody wears clothes. And that's what ag is about. It's the biggest industry in the state. And I want to personally thank the committee for letting me sit in this chair, even though there's somebody smart's going to get the job next year. But I appreciate all y'all. And hope we have done some good work to take care of agriculture in this state. So thank y'all very much, and I appreciate everybody, just like I said about the meat bill, working together and coming to a conclusion that suits everybody. So look forward to seeing y'all around. And if you're ever in Elberton, Georgia, come by the Poe House over there, and we'll feed you something. But thank y'all very much. Sweet. Y'all, we adjourn. Y'all. But thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, can I say one thing?
Yes, sir.
Just for the record, Mr. Chairman, I don't think this is your last ag committee here.
Well, thank you. But thank y'all all very much.